Hey, what's up, everybody? So while we wait for people to show up, just this is the same old questions and answers. If you have any questions that are tech related, career, programming, learning to program, any of that stuff, feel free to ask them, and I'll be answering them here in the next over the next 30 minutes or so. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna share this link around a little bit, see if we can get some people in here. If you've been to one of these before, sound off in the live chat, say what's up. Alright, Valmatic, welcome back. Michael, welcome back. Joshua, how's it going? Rach, hello. Stylo, Shady's back. The red light is because it's nighttime here, bro. I'm trying to protect my eyes. Does it bother you? Does it entice you? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? All the above? Okay, so I just posted it over in Facebook group. Red light district. Yeah, I figured people would ask questions like that. Yeah, good one, Rach. Yeah, the red light is just for my eyes, yo. Ahmed, how's it going? Or Ahmed. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Can't even mispronounce. Alright, let's get started with these questions. I don't have all night, people. Fire them off! Anybody like wearing watches? I'm in love with these Shark watches. I bought my first one like 7 years ago, I think, and I still have it. It's running. It's over there. And then it's falling apart. It's like I glued it together at this point, but it still runs. It's not the waterproof seal is gone, so I got a new one. I think they're like $30. That one I got for 70, but they're cheaper now. Anyway, or maybe they're like 60. I don't know. For me, that's a lot of money for a watch, but compared to like a Rolex or something, it's not not very much. All right, first question. How did I come to find your channel? Where did you come from? Who is the man behind the glasses? All right, so wait, how would I know how you found my channel? You have to tell me that. Where did I come from? So as much as I would love to talk about myself, let's save that for a little later and focus on some more tech-related stuff. But if anybody's interested in hearing my my story, my little programming journey story, I've told it before, but I'm happy to tell it again. So if you're interested in hearing that, sound off in the live chat. All right. Ahmed says, doing good, dude. Really enjoyed your course with Colt on Udemy. Thanks. Appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. What are some important technologies to learn today with regards to being a graduating student? And by the way, before I get started answering that question, I'm pretty tired. I stayed up too late last night and the night before, and I wake up super early in the morning, and then I just ate a huge dinner of delicious Korean food. So I'm stuffed and I'm tired. So sorry if I'm a little out of it, but I'll try to answer your questions best I'm able. All right, so what are some important technologies to learn today with regards to being a graduating student? So, Rach, I would need to know a graduating student, like a graduate student in college or a student that graduated Colt Steele's Web Developer Bootcamp. What do you mean by a graduating student exactly? And then Psycho SKX007 is a nice beginner on a Mac. Are you talking about watches? So Ahmed says, I have a question at work. My team uses Oracle Application Framework. It's something not interested, but I really need a job. What should I do? Oh, you really need a job. So are you saying that you currently at your work you use Oracle, but it's not exciting for you, it's not challenging, and so but you needed work, which I know how that is. But you're saying like, what should you do at this point? If I'm getting that correct, let me know. But assuming that I am correct, I would say, first things first, you need to be able to provide for yourself, and if you have a family, provide for your family. So you aren't necessarily going to love your job, and that's okay, but I would say stay at that job long enough to where it looks good on your resume so that you can segue into another job. And hopefully during your time at that job, you have spare time that you're putting towards learning the technologies that are interesting to you. That way you can take your experience at your current job that you may not necessarily like that much, plus these technologies that you've just learned, combine those together to be able to segue into your next job, which would be something that's more interesting. Maybe it was meant to be. Everything happens for a reason, Styla. All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about my story here in a second. Rach said undergrad or Colt's course. Okay, so if you're graduating as an undergrad or graduating from Colt's course, what are some technologies that you want to focus on? So if you've watched my Q&As before, then you probably know that I'm real big on like. Let me move this up real quick so I can keep an eye on the audio levels. Okay, so you're probably, yeah, these audio levels are going too high. Let me bring them down just a little bit. All right, hopefully that's a little bit better. Seems like it's spiking a little bit. Okay, so bear with me for just a second. Okay, back on track. All right, so whether you're graduating college or you've just taken Colt's course or a combination of the two, technologies to focus on next. Well, if you're taking Colt's course, then you're probably into web development in some way or another, right? And so the next step would be to advance your knowledge of web development. Because Colt's course, let's be honest, it's a beginner's course. It just covers the fundamentals, and it does it well, in my opinion. And, it's well rated, so I think other people agree. So where do you go next? Well, at this point, you have to ask yourself, all right, I've had a little bit of front end. I've had a little bit of back end. So I'm considered a junior full stack developer. What direction do I want to go in? Do I want to continue with both front end and back end and continue being a full stack developer? Or do I want to focus more on the back end and just get away from the front end, and vice versa? Do I want to focus more on the front end and get away from the back end? And so if you are enjoying both, then you might stick with full stack. If you like all three of them, but you're concerned about the income, then you might want to look and find out which of those three combinations is going to give you the best salary. Because if you're just like, I enjoy front end, I enjoy back end, I enjoy full stack. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to code, but I also need to make a decent amount of money. Well, some front end jobs are going to pay better than some back end jobs, and vice versa. So you just want to figure out which one's the best and then go with it. And it may not be up to you. You may interview for both types and then just get one or the other. So that's another thing to consider. You get your first job as a junior developer, and that's just kind of like I'm going to learn a lot during this time period job. And you'll probably make some decent money, but it's not your end goal. So you use that as a stepping stone. You use that to learn, to fill in the gaps in your learning, and to make some money, and also to build your resume. And 6 months to a year or more, then you segue into your second job. And that may not even be your be all end all. That might just be the next stepping stone. And you may go 2, 3, 4 jobs before you find the one that you really like. Hopefully 2, because the process is frustrating, but once you get the hang of it, it's not a huge deal. So in terms of technologies, let's focus on that, because we're just generalizing, right? Front end, back end, front end, back, together with full stack. Front end, you could pick a front end framework to specialize in, and so you could pick Vue or Angular or React, of course. Can't forget React. React is like popping right now. Kids, everybody's loving it. It's so hot. So you decide which one of those is your favorite. You also decide which one has the most job openings in the region that you're looking. So if you're trying to work in Denver and Denver doesn't have any Angular jobs, that's just an example. I have no idea what's available out there right now. Then you're not going to pick Angular. Obviously, you're going to pick React and specialize in that. And so the same goes for backend stuff. You just want to continue down a backend path, and that may mean branching out and learning. Someone mentioned Redis earlier, which is funny. You may need to learn Redis for data store. You may need to learn a different scripting language. Maybe you're using Node right now. You need to learn like Ruby or Python or even PHP. It just depends on Mugatu. Yes, dude, I love that reference. It just depends on the area that you're trying to get a job. So once you zero in on the region and the type of job that you want, then you can look at job openings, and then you can figure out what technologies they want you to know, see the patterns among these different job openings. If there's 10 of them, try to see which technologies pop up the most, and then focus in on that technology, go find resources for it, learn it, get decent at it, put it on your portfolio, apply for those jobs, get a job, make the money, etc. So that is my recommendation there. Whether you're graduating college or graduating high school or taking Colt's course for that, any of those, or a combination of those three. I guess you wouldn't be graduating high school and college at the same time, but you get my point. All right, let's catch up on these comments because it's starting to get pretty congested. Zach, hello, how's it going? Vomitic, will variables in JavaScript become irrelevant in the future? You mean variables that are defined using the var keyword? And then the next one says variables were replaced with let and const, right? That is correct. So if that's your question, Vomitic, like will the var keyword be replaced? Not necessarily. I mean, right now, you're not going to see it in modern JavaScript very often because let and const have replaced it. And so in its the simplest form, const is the one that you want to use when you don't want that variable to be overwritten later on in the program. And then let is the one where you can reassign it if necessary. And then there's much more to it in terms of like block scoping, which is a really cool thing that helps out with, you can have a variable defined here and then have a function or a loop or something and have a variable inside of it, and they can share the same name, but since they're defined with let, then they're agnostic of one another. So this one down here inside the loop can be reassigned and assigned to whatever, and it's not going to affect this one that's on the scope outside of it. So that's stuff that's pretty neat, and you can figure that stuff out just by looking up the ES 2015 documentation or any YouTube video that covers let and const. All right, so much blood, Karcher. Good to see you. Yeah, it's red in here, isn't it? It's pronounced Seiko. Oh, excuse me. Working towards a coding, backend, front-end, junior web dev. What backend language should I learn? So if you heard my response earlier to Rachel's question, basically the backend language you should learn is if your goal is to get a job, then the language you should learn is the language that the companies that you're targeting in terms of applications are using. If you're just learning it for fun, then pick whichever one you like. Try a couple. If you're new to programming and you haven't used any languages, maybe check out Ruby. It's very beginner friendly. So is Python. They're very similar in some ways. And then JavaScript is a lot of fun. Well, Node.js on the back end. And then, yeah, you can mess around with like PHP and stuff like that. There's plenty of others, but Some of the easier ones for beginners are like Ruby and Python, so those are definitely worth checking out. Are DMCA notices on websites something web developers should be concerned about? Saw my first one today and did not quite understand the ramifications. So DMCA, if I'm understanding correctly, I forget what it stands for, but it's basically like a takedown notice, right, of content. So I'd love to see the one that you're referring to, but I've only heard about it in reference to like YouTube videos, if I'm not getting that mistaken. So I don't have a good answer for you because I'm not familiar with it. But as a web developer, yeah, I would just do some research on it and see if you can learn a little bit more about it from Google, which is just a long-winded way of me just saying like, Google it, Michael. But unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you. All right, so the only thing spiking is our admiration of you. That's cute, and thank you. Are you cool, man? I want to know. I feel like I'm pretty cool. How did I make my room red? So I'm not going to turn my camera around because this room's really messy right now. This is the office, actually. And I need to clean it. So, but it's just a Philips Hue light bulb. So I can get on my phone and change the color. Ugh. Do a little light show for you real quick. So yeah, Philips Hue is pretty cool. Purple, blue, light blue, green, and red. Back to red. Texting my wife. 1 second, everybody. She's more important than you guys. Okay. So, Josh, how's it going? What does SQL mean? I hear it a lot, and MySQL. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language. I think that's right. I'm pretty tired right now. But and then MySQL. So SQL is a language, you could say, for making queries to a database. Okay, it's not a programming language per se. Then MySQL is an actual database. Like it's the database that stores the data, and the way that you communicate with that data is with the SQL language. Now, all these different PostgreSQL and SQLite and MySQL, those are all different databases, RDBMSs, relational database management systems or softwares, and they all have a slight unique flavor of SQL. So they have a little bit differing syntax, but most of it is, if you know one, you can very easily learn another because they're very similar. They all use SQL as the underlying language. Also, Colt Steel has a course on that. So, oh man, I haven't been plugging anything. How am I ever supposed to make any money if I don't tell you guys where to spend your money? So if you want to find the MySQL course that Colt teaches, if you don't already know about it or have it, check out topratedsetcourses.com. Link down there. All right. And while I have a couple of you here, if you feel like supporting me in any way, feel free to donate for the session. All right, back to the questions. Oh no. I went too far. Here we go. How about ViewJS? As a front-end framework, yeah, it's out there. It's good. What I've seen of it, I liked it a lot. So Valmatic says, I took up web development because I believe that coding is the future, and also I need to get a career and start maturing as a being. Coding can definitely help you with that. So I don't know how to pronounce the name. Curasir. Once I heard ViewJS is not desirable for bigger projects. Do you agree? I don't have a good answer for that because I haven't used it. I would think if they're being competitive with React and Angular, which they are, that you could use it on larger projects. But I mean, how large is the project? If you're building some, like for instance, if you're, I know for certain, like you wouldn't want to use jQuery on an enormous project unless it was just for small parts of it. And likewise, you might be able to use ViewJS for smaller parts of an enormous project. I don't know how well it scales. So unfortunately, I can't answer that confidently. But it is something that you could very easily figure out on Google. All right. What backend languages should I learn for backend? Someone said Shift. I've never even heard of Shift, if that's an answer to your question. It's up to you. Node.js is the one that I like a lot, and it's popular among my audience. I used to use a lot of Ruby. It's a fun language. I don't use it anymore. Python is amazing. I don't use it that often, but for automation, it's incredible. So I would say between Node.js and Python, you're winning either way. Also, I don't like to get like biased and sit here and be like, don't learn PHP or don't learn Node. Like, they're all just tools. So try not to, like, you'll hear stuff online on Reddit or whatever that other website is, forget the name. But people ask questions like this, beginners especially, and then a bunch of people weigh in and they say, you should definitely learn this as your first language, or this language is better than that language, or this language sucks. Don't listen to that stuff. All these different languages have their place. Many of them are very popular despite what people may say. And so you can't let biases make you go one way or the other. Just my recommendation, if you're not looking for a job, is just try a couple out, figure out which one you like the most, and then stick with it. If you are going for a job, then you have less options because you need to learn the language that the companies that you're trying to get hired at are using. So in that case, you have to look at the different job applications and then decide, okay, I'll use this, that, or the other based on what those postings have listed. All right, so what would you advise to someone who has trouble getting the hang of coding? I can do it, but sometimes I feel like I'm just slow at grasping it. So practice makes perfect, for sure. The more exposure you have to it, but also the more use. Like, you could sit around and watch YouTube tutorials all day, but if you don't start using what you've learned, then it's not going to help you. You could read a book, but if you don't start using it, it's not going to help you. So the more the code that you write, the more problems you run into, and therefore the more problems that you solve, the better of a developer you're going to be over time. It's not an overnight sort of thing. So just stick with it, build projects, code. And if you get stuck, make sure you get help from, hopefully you can figure it out just by Googling. But if you can't, then make sure you get help from a mentor. And so I guess that's a good time to plug my mentoring stuff. You can hire me. You don't have to, obviously. There's plenty of other people out there who offer mentoring, or you can just go to online communities like Stack Overflow or Discord, where there's a server that is for developers, etc., and you can get help, usually for free. So explore those avenues first. But if you ever need help, there's people like me, including me, who offer tutoring, link below. And we can help you out to be able to get better at it. But yeah, to sum it up, practice makes perfect. Stefan Mishuks, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Course. Which course are you talking about? Looks like CarShare is having trouble with his keyboard, his or her keyboard. My nose is itching. It's driving me crazy. So excuse me while I itch the heck out of it. Okay. Are you working full-time right now or freelancing is a question from Rach. So are you trying to have me reveal all my secrets? I do freelance. I have several freelance customers that I'm juggling right now. I also do a lot of tutoring, and some of the tutoring turns into freelancing because like I'll tutor people to a certain point, and then they say, all right, this is getting too advanced. or I don't have enough time, or I'm working full time, so this side project I have to either pause it or make you work on it. Anyways, the point is, some of my tutoring clients, students that I tutor, end up being contract gigs as well. So I'm doing a combination of those things, and then I also manage Colt Steele's courses, and I have some people that help me with that, so I manage them as well. And then I have my own courses, and you know, when you are helping people with coding for several different courses, and there's all these different, Discord and Facebook group and YouTube, all these different ways for people to contact me, not to mention the people that somehow find my email because it's out there. Basically, if I didn't manage it well, the moment I got on my computer in the morning, I'd be answering questions until I went to bed. So I used to do that, and I used to get really burnt out. But these days, I just try to manage it. I try to direct people to the right place. If you need help with Colt Steele's courses, you got to go to the Udemy Q&A to get help. Otherwise, you got to ask the community for help in the Discord channel. And I can't necessarily be the person to help you there. Sometimes I do when I have free time, but I can't always be the person. Anyway, that kind of sums it up. I'm just like managing these courses. Yes, I do contract work in several different coding languages, and I also manage older clients' websites, and then I also do tutoring. I have to lose the BCG glasses, bro. Actually, I don't really need these right now. I just started wearing them recently. They're not prescription. They're for blocking out the blue light, which apparently is like a huge scam. All these glasses companies, the lens companies and whatnot, are like jumping all over it. Like, it blocks out the blue light because everybody works on a computer these days, and they're capitalizing on the like save your eyes, whatever. But I can personally say that they make me feel better when I wear them. My vision doesn't get as messed up, but it could just be placebo. Either way, it works. But since I have the red light on, it's not a huge deal because there's not so much blue light in here, but there is some from the screen. But I don't know what BCG is. You gotta tell me what that acronym stands for. Okay. Do you agree that minors under the age of 18 should have their comments hidden on YouTube even if older than 13? It's hard to say. Like, I was on the computer when I was very young, and I was in a lot of online communities, and I definitely was immature as a kid. And so I did and said a lot of immature things, and I was put in my place many times by older people in those communities. The communities I was part of, this is back in the day, man. This is like before YouTube was a big thing. This is like before Discord, before Slack, all that stuff. We were using like forums, like PHP, BB forums and whatnot. And I also, so twofold. One, I was saying like immature stuff that's like, dude, why is this kid in here being able to comment? But two, I was also like, I feel like at least on one occasion, I had somebody that was like, what do they call it? Like a predator, but they're like trying to groom me or whatever it is. Like, I didn't really realize it at the time. Fortunately, I was savvy enough at the time that I was just kind of like, this guy's weird. Like, I'm not going to talk to him. But now as an adult, I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't talk to that guy. What? So anyway, in terms of combination of like keeping kids out of the conversation because they don't have anything valuable to contribute, which that's not my opinion. I'm just saying like that could be one reason why you would. And then on the other side of the coin, like just not letting people communicate with children online, I think the latter thing is the more important. Like, there's adults who act like kids and there's kids who act like adults. So in terms of the value that people bring to the conversation, freedom of speech, you can say whatever the heck you want. But when it comes to children's safety, I'm like a huge advocate for that. So if it means like not letting them communicate, or at least monitoring their communication in some way, like YouTube doing that somehow, I don't know. Something needs to be done. So it's kind of a tricky subject, kind of a tricky question to answer. But I definitely think that anybody and everybody on the internet should be looking out for young adults and children who are allowed to be online, because if we don't, then they're gonna fall privy to these creeps that are out there. What was the last thing I was gonna say? I feel like it was important, but if I can remember it, I'll let you know. Oh yeah, so one thing that I've noticed, just the last thing I was gonna say, is that like on Colt's course or on YouTube, something about younger kids, they love to tell you how old they are. Like on Discord or on Udemy or on YouTube, they're always like, I'm 15 or like I'm 13. And you're like, don't tell people how old you are. Because to the average person, you're just like, okay, cool, there's a kid here. But to the creeps out there, they're like, the little radars go off and they're like, oh, there's a kid in here. So if you're a child and you're watching this, please stop telling people how old you are on the internet. Okay? It's not a smart move. Rogue One Vader scene. Yeah, dude. Alright, so is it possible to hack a game work on server side? Is it possible to like make a game work on the server? It just depends on what kind of game you're talking about. So you could make like a game that's data related, where people like input stuff, and then things happen on the back end, and data gets shown to them on the front end because of whatever they input. But in terms of like making truly, graphical, interactive games, things that have like a nice, user-facing interface, you're going to want to use front-end stuff for that. You're going to have to use front-end stuff for that. But in terms of storing data, maybe it's just like a RPG or something where your name is so-and-so and you have 100 coins and you're from the land of whatever. You store all that in the back end, and then you can like build a community around it and make a game that way. Or maybe it's just a game that's questions and answers and you get a score. That can all be done on the back end. But if you're talking about like video games where you have to like move a character and stuff, that's front end. Or a combination of front end and back end. Okay. Will there come courses about C# in the future? I don't know C#, so they won't be coming from me, unfortunately. Wife, last update I had was on girlfriend status. How long have you been stalking me, man? Also, yeah, I've been married now for like almost a year and a half. So thank you. Barefoot and pregnant. You forgot in the kitchen. She has to be in the kitchen while she's barefoot and pregnant. Let's see here. SQL course from Colt is really good. Thank you, Rach. Send my check, please. Yes, it's on its way. About to finish Web Dev Bootcamp on Udemy. What should I do next? What do you want to do next, Simon? Are you looking for a job? Because if you are, you'll probably need to learn some more stuff. You can expand on your knowledge from Colt's course by taking my Code with Node course. It's free on Udemy. It's also free on DevSprout. And it'll build on everything that you learned in Colt's course, continuing with backend stuff. If your goal is to get a job, you got to figure out if you want to get a job what are they using? Are you going to try and be a front-end developer or a full-stack developer? Are they using Node? Are they also using React? Or are they using React and then are they using Python on the back end? You got to figure those things out. Once you have the answers to those questions, then you know automatically, oh, I need to learn React. I need to learn Python. So figure out what your goals are. Once you have answers to those questions, then you can very easily figure out what technologies you need to focus on in terms of next steps. Next steps. MySQL, yep. Why Colt don't teach PHP? So basically, I think when Colt first came out with, first of all, he may not know any PHP. Second of all, when he first came out with the Web Developer Bootcamp, his only competitor was Rob Percival, and he already had a PHP course. So why create another PHP course when Rob was already crushing it? That's just more difficult in terms of competition. So it's easier for Colt to position himself as the new modern bootcamp that teaches Node.js, which isn't a dated technology like PHP, which you hear that a lot. And to some degree it's true, but at the same time, it's not so much that PHP is dated, because it's still used widely in a lot of places. People are still getting paid good money to use it and for their jobs. It's more so that at that time Node was popular. It was just like React is popular right now. Now, granted, they're both on two ends of the spectrum, but it was easier to sell the course by teaching Node. He could have just as easily done Ruby, but when you're making a course, sometimes it's in your best interest, especially if you're trying to make money, which none of my courses make any money. So anyway, we'll get to that later. But point is, it's in your best interest to teach what's hot, what's trending. And Node.js was trending at the time, and it still kind of is in some areas. So I think that was the driver of his decision. That's all speculation, by the way. I have no idea why he didn't actually teach it. PHP, that is. React versus Node. So Varun, or Varun, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. That is not a real thing. Like, there's no React versus Node, because React is on the front end and Node is on the back end. So you can use them together. You could use them separate. But if you're asking like which one should you learn, I would recommend learning both. Because if you're using React and it's doing any type of storing of data, that's going to happen on a back end. And so you can use something like GraphQL, which is from Facebook as well. But a lot of times you're just going to connect to an API, and the API is going to be written with something like Node. So my recommendation is not which is better, but learn them both. So 10K subs with no videos said, in my opinion, Python is the best language to learn for beginners. The syntax is just like English, yet the ceiling is still very high. Also, no intimidating curly braces everywhere. True, 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 true. Yeah, very human-readable syntax, just like Ruby. Okay, Ankush, hopefully I'm saying your name right. Why is my nose so itchy? Maybe I need a shave. Okay. I'm currently doing Web Developer Bootcamp course from Udemy. The instructor is Colt. I just need to know if I can do React Developer course after finishing this course. You don't need my permission to do that. You can take whichever course you want. If you're asking, should you? That's up to you. Again, what are your goals? Do you want a front-end job? Are you interested in learning the front end? If you are, then React is a good decision. And if you like the way Colt teaches, then Colt's React course might also be a good decision for you. But I can't make that decision for you. So, of course, the beauty of taking courses on Udemy is, one, they're cheap, and two, they have a 30-day return policy, full guarantee money back. So if you don't like the course, just make sure you get your money back. Windows 10 has a feature called Nightlight that allows you to remove the blue light. So I use Mac and I use Flux, and it removes the blue light to a degree. But I also have this camera that's recording me, has these annoying blue rings around it, which, it's not the end of the world. If there's a little bit of blue light, it's not the end of the world. But it is 8 o'clock here, so that stuff, it keeps me up, it gets me wired, and so I'm already pretty tired. So when I do get to go to sleep, I want to be able to put my head down and just pass out without just being all jacked up on the blue light. So, but thank you, Michael, for making note of that. I don't use Windows 10. I don't have it on any of my computers. Still rocking Windows 7 on all my Windows machines. Cock-a-doodle-doo. But I don't use Windows for development. I only use it for gaming. Which, if anybody plays PUBG Lite, hit me up. We should play sometime. Ready. So the next question is, Heroku server are not accessing online MongoDB. My web app runs fine when hosted offline with that connection string. So when you say connection string, you're probably talking about either a local database connection, or, by the way, this is answering Bhupendra's question, local connection string or MongoDB Atlas or MLab. So local connection string is not going to work on Heroku whatsoever. MLab and MongoDB Atlas, they will work, but odds are you're accessing them via a environment variable, which in your local setup you might have in a .env file, but on Heroku you have to export them either from the command line or in your Heroku dashboard. So look up Heroku config vars, VARs, like variables, and you'll see the instructions for exporting your connection string to Heroku. Hopefully that helps you get it going. If that's not working, then check out your Heroku logs, and it'll tell you what's going on. All right. Any advice to people like me who are always at a negative thought? I really want to become a web dev, but when it's time to put on the work, my brain won't cooperate with me, and I start procrastinating. So, how to stop procrastinating? It's nice to have pressure to motivate you. You know, like, if you don't have any, like, for instance, for me, I got to get up and get on the computer and figure out how to make $1 every day, because if I don't, then my kids aren't going to have food to eat or a roof over their heads, and all the other things. I won't have this red light in here. Power's going to be off. Red light's going to be gone too. So that's a good motivator. So if you can create some type of motivation like that, maybe set some timelines, some deadlines for yourself, for your learning, then that'll help. Like, tell yourself, like, if I don't get a job in the next 6 to 12 months or whatever your deadline is going to be, then you got to come up with something that's going to pressure you. And also it might help if you have somebody that can, like, make you accountable to it. So that's just my suggestion. The other thing is, make sure that you're doing stuff that's interesting to you. If you're procrastinating because you don't like this stuff, then don't do it. Find something that you like, that you'll be excited about. Skip for the glasses. Does Colt teach a React course? Yes, he does. If you go up, I have a link, topratedtechcourses.com. There's several under front-end frameworks. Just click on that category, and his course is on there. And then there's several other courses. You get to decide. There's a couple options. All right. As someone who learned a bit of backend from Colt's Web Dev Bootcamp, I now understand the plight of game developers, even if they're both different. Yeah, I mean, while you're not necessarily learning gaming development stuff, you're just learning web development, you're learning coding, and so it translates. You're able to understand a little bit better what's going on in that realm. And you could very easily switch from being a web developer to a game developer if you wanted to. So that's cool. What's the fastest way from the Web Developer Bootcamp to being job ready for a front-end position? So you're going to have to build projects. And if you're coming from the Web Developer Bootcamp, you're going to need to learn a front-end framework if you're trying to get a front-end position. And so you're going to want to go find a resource, free or paid, it's up to you, for learning that. If I was going to learn React, I would go learn it from the documentation. And if that got boring or it wasn't getting me where I needed to go, then I would go find an instructor on YouTube or some written tutorials or some other, just some other resources that were more to my liking and that helped me learn it quickly. And I would try to build, at the very beginning, to learn the syntax and learn how things work, you want to follow guides. You want to follow the documentation or a written guide or a tutorial. But once you know how things fit together, then you want to start doing your own project. And so a lot of times you can kind of bring all that together by taking a course. And so if you go take a front-end course, like a React course, then they'll hopefully have projects for you. So they'll teach you the fundamentals, but they'll also give you a project that you can put it to work with. Because if they don't give you a project, that's a bad course. You need to take courses that give you projects. And if you find a course that, maybe it's not a bad course, maybe they teach you how it works, but they don't give you a project, which I don't know of any like that, but if there are ones out there that are like that, you got to come up with a project. No matter what, whether it's a project that someone else comes up for you or it's your own project that you created, you have to work on a project to be able to put these skills to use and get that muscle memory and really get this stuff ingrained. So from the Web Developer Bootcamp, figure out which front-end language or framework, rather, that you want to learn. They're all going to be JavaScript based. And once you have that figured out, then go find the resources for it and start building those projects. And then in terms of being job ready, it's going to be nice to have those projects on your portfolio. So make sure you have a portfolio. And, it might be a good idea to build your portfolio with some newfound skills for like React or Angular or whatever framework you decide to use. Also, there's a good chance that you're going to have to know like some algorithms and data structure stuff, even if it's just the basics. So you might want to take one of those courses, or at least read a book, or go on to YouTube and look at some. I think like Harvard or MIT, somebody's got some really good videos for that kind of stuff, like just basic computer science stuff. So you're learning about like linked lists and doubly linked lists and graphs and trees, and those are all data structures. And then you're learning about bubble sort, insert sort, and other algorithms. So courses that cover that kind of stuff are going to be really helpful for job interviews. Do I make a profit from Colt's courses? Yes. From the Web Developer Bootcamp and the Ultimate MySQL course, I get a percentage of the profits that Colt makes from those courses. Are there plans for Colt to update the web dev course with accessibility stuff in HTML? He skips alt text and semantic tags, which are currently best practice. I don't know Colt's plans, but knowing what I know about the course, I don't think he has plans for that stuff. He does, however, have, if I'm not mistaken, a YouTube video that covers accessibility. So you might go to his YouTube channel and check out that video. I'm almost positive it's one of his very first videos on the channel. And then, of course, you can learn all that stuff from like MDN. So you're not necessarily going to learn it from Colt unless it's from that YouTube video, and I don't know how much he covers, but that stuff is important. So it would have been nice if he had covered that stuff, but I will tell you right now, there's not a lot of, and it's unfortunate, courses that cover accessibility, even in like in-person boot camps. They'll talk about it briefly, the alt tag does this and that, but if you really want to drill down, you need to go to the W3 consortium website and see what they have to say about making your website accessible, which is important because there's a large portion of viewers who are trying to go to your website who need that stuff to be able to interact with your website correctly. So it's a big deal. You should definitely, if you're not seeing it in a course like Colt, you should take it upon yourself to go learn that stuff on your own time. All right, so it's almost 8:30. I'm going to wrap up with these last two questions, and I can get out of here. If you enjoy these and you want to see more of them, then please consider, I'm typing in the URL right now, donating. That's the link. Any amount is appreciated. All right, so is there a minimum number of projects one needs to show to future employers? And about getting jobs, is it fine starting with a remote job? I'm at junior level and just starting out. So minimum number of projects. The more you have, the better. Obviously, you don't want to show 1,000 projects because it doesn't really make any sense. But like when I was first looking for work out of a boot camp, after a boot camp, I had like 6 clients that I already done websites for. So I had a pretty good portfolio, plus all the stuff I had made at the boot camp, which was like another 3 or 4 projects, like bigger ones. So that's a lot. You don't necessarily need that many. It's more important to have projects that are completed, that look nice, the code's easy to read, it's easy to understand what's going on there, you have good documentation, you have a good history of commit messages with Git, stuff like that's really important. And so if you can focus on that, on just 1 or 2 or 3 projects, that's better than having 10 projects where 10 projects where they're all sloppy, or they're not completed, stuff like that. So less is sometimes better than more, as long as you really focus on completing them and making sure that they're well-rounded. And then the last one, Vomitic, not sure if I should go for full stack or backend. I think that'll become more obvious with time as you go through this stuff more. You'll find yourself working more full stack or more backend, or maybe even more front end. And at that point, you'll kind of realize like, okay, this is probably the direction I'm going. So that question will probably end up answering itself in your future. All right, that's it. I got to get out of here. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me for the last 50 minutes. And again, if you want to support me, please consider the PayPal link that I've got there. Otherwise, check out topratedtechcourses.com if you're looking for something new to learn from Udemy. And we will catch you all in the next session. See you later.